If someone I loved went missing, I'd like to think that the police were on my side. We like to think that that would be the case, and if a member of our family or a friend suddenly vanished, authorities would do all they could to find them. The case we're looking at today is pretty weird because of the way the disappearance of a young girl was treated by her family and the authorities. As we'll see, this investigation is so messy that it really seems like the family and the police are working against each other and not working in the best interests of the victim. Today, we're looking into the disappearance of Rebecca Reusch. Like a lot of other girls her age, Rebecca loved TikTok and K-pop, her favorite group being BTS. BTS is probably the most popular K-pop group in the world right now, after they blew up in the States. But they had a strong following in Germany too, where Rebecca is from. She lived with her mom and dad in the capital city, Berlin. Her sister Jennifer lives in the same neighborhood with her husband Florian and their daughter. Rebecca was super close with her sister and her niece, so she spent most weekends over at her house. Her parents were pretty much always totally fine with this since they knew she was still nearby, and they trusted their older daughter to look after Rebecca. The night of February 17th, 2019 was a school night for Rebecca, but she asked her parents if she could spend the night at her sister's house. Florian was going to be away at a company party, so it was the perfect time for the two sisters to spend some one-on-one time together. Her mom agreed as long as she promised to make sure she got to school on time the next day. Rebecca headed over to her sister's house, and that was the last time her parents ever saw her. The next morning, Rebecca's mom tried calling her at 7:15 a.m. to make sure she got up on time to go to school, but her cell phone was switched off. She assumed Rebecca forgot to charge her phone and it ran out of battery, so she called Jennifer to ask her to wake her sister. Jennifer told her mom that she wasn't home and she'd had to take her daughter to daycare on the way to work at 7 a.m. She called her husband Florian because she knew he would be home and probably still sleeping. He didn't get home from his party until almost 6 a.m. that morning. When Florian picked up, he said that Rebecca must have left already because she wasn't anywhere in the house. Rebecca's mom sent her a message on WhatsApp. She got no response and the message wasn't read, but she could see it had been received by Rebecca's phone. WhatsApp uses Wi-Fi or data to send and receive messages, so if her phone wasn't on, then she wouldn't have been able to get her mom's message. Her family tried not to panic. They told themselves that more than likely something was wrong with Rebecca's phone, and they'd wait until later before involving the police. That afternoon, Rebecca never came home, and her school called her parents to ask why she never came in that day. At that point, they knew something was wrong here and called the police. Now, it's important to note that police in Germany don't work the same way they do in the US, especially in cases where a person has gone missing or died under suspicious circumstances. The police don't like to release a lot of information to the media. They'd much rather just keep investigations between them and the victim's family, who oftentimes won't get the full story unless police think it's necessary for them to know certain details. I mention this because it means a lot of the info on this case is super vague, and there may be big details that the public has no idea about. Plus, a lot of the details actually came from Rebecca's family, who, as we'll learn, really weren't happy with this investigation. However, the family themselves have had a lot of suspicion cast over them, and we don't know if their unsupported claims are 100% true, but we'll get into that. Her family contacted the police and reported her as missing, but a missing persons report on Rebecca wasn't filed until the next day. This confused her family and made them feel like they weren't taking her disappearance seriously. A lot of places do have rules that you can't report someone as missing until 48 hours after they've vanished, but this usually doesn't apply to minors. Rebecca's family took to social media and appealed for help in finding her. At the same time, the police put out a photo of Rebecca in case anyone had seen her around during the day she went missing. Once again, her family were not happy about this. According to Rebecca's mom, they gave the police a bunch of recent pictures they could publish, but the one they used came from Rebecca's Instagram, and it really doesn't look like her. Like a lot of people that post selfies, this photo had filters and lots of editing. Plus, Rebecca was wearing way more makeup in the picture than she'd usually wear, and her family said if people were out looking for the girl in the picture, they'd never recognize Rebecca. Luckily, because Rebecca had a big online social media presence, there were lots of images available online that looked way more like her. The police also told people to keep a lookout for items and clothing Rebecca may have taken with her when she vanished. This included a pink fluffy jacket, ripped jeans, a white Rap Monster t-shirt, black and white Vans, a pink handbag, and a red backpack. This interested a lot of people because it seemed like with that many bags, Rebecca was going somewhere and may have run away from home. Apparently, this theory was explored by the police, but they concluded this was unlikely as Rebecca loved her family and had no major issues going on in her life that would make her want to run away. Aside from the family posting on social media, everything surrounding the case was very quiet until February 28th, when the police made a shocking arrest: Rebecca's brother-in-law, Florane. The news was a surprise to everybody, especially since the police had yet to inform if foul play was involved in the disappearance, but they soon revealed they had good reason to suspect Florane. On the morning that Rebecca vanished at around 10:45 a.m., the car owned by Jennifer and Florane was caught on a speed camera heading towards Poland, a drive that only takes about an hour and a half. Since it's known that Jennifer was at work, it must have been Florane driving the car. It was confirmed to definitely be their car through pictures of the license plate because they have a very recognizable car, a pink Twingo. The car was spotted taking the same journey a few days later, and again, Florane was driving. Rebecca's family supported Florane completely and refused to believe he was involved. This confused a lot of people, especially after it came out that police found Rebecca's hair and fibers from her fluffy jacket in the car. The family insisted that Florane was innocent and that it wasn't strange at all for evidence of Rebecca's presence to be in the car, since she rode in it regularly, either being driven by her sister or Florane. Due to lack of evidence, Florane was released from custody with no charge. The next day, Rebecca's case was changed from a missing person to a homicide. The police went back and forth with their theory that Florane was involved, and they would arrest him again on March 4th. It's thought that they didn't charge him because they knew there wasn't enough evidence to convict him. If he went to trial, then more than likely he'd walk free, and it was better to wait until they had something solid on him. With all the attention from the police, Florane started to crack. Eventually, he made a confession to the police, but it wasn't what they expected. He told them the reason he was traveling to Poland on the day Rebecca vanished was to meet someone. Florane stated that he'd gotten mixed up in trading illegal substances, and that was what he was on his way to do. He didn't want to tell the police because he knew it would get him into huge trouble, especially if he was making these deals in another country. He claims that on his second journey, also caught on cameras, he was going back to the same location to search for his wedding ring. This did not sit well with the police, who couldn't figure out how someone going to do a business deal could lose their wedding ring. They figured that Florane must have been doing something with his hands for that to happen, and they started searching the area, intent on finding Rebecca's body. A forest in the area of Brandenburg was searched by hundreds of police and investigators, including at least 3 cadaver dogs. When nothing came up, the search was taken to Lake Wollisger. More cadaver dogs and divers were employed to search the lake thoroughly, but not even a trace of Rebecca was found. With nothing tying Rebecca to the area, police were forced to call off the investigation, and Florane was again released from police custody. They resumed the search in a similar area 6 months later, but it was called off that evening when nothing was found. While this was going on, Rebecca's family started to withdraw from media attention, but they wanted to make something clear. The police were looking at the wrong person. Rebecca's mom claims that in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, Rebecca had befriended a boy online called Max. He didn't live in Berlin, but the two really wanted to meet in person, an idea that Rebecca's parents did not approve of. Her family believes that on the day she went missing, Rebecca was going to skip school and meet with Max. As with a lot of these cases, it could have turned out that Max was a catfish and could be the cause of Rebecca's disappearance. The weirdest part is that the day after Rebecca vanished, so did Max. He deleted all of his social media profiles, and none of Rebecca's friends who were familiar with Max could contact him. I'm all for doing a social media cleanse, but he definitely picked a weird day to do it. Police say they're aware of Max, but it's not clear how much they've looked into him as a suspect. Right now, it seems like they're really focused on Florane. As I said, police in Germany aren't crazy about releasing a lot of details to the public, so we can only assume they know more than they're telling. I can't help but wonder if that's even the case, since Rebecca's family has been so vocal about their dissatisfaction with the case. As of 2021, Rebecca has been missing for 2 years, and where she is and what happened to her remains a mystery. Florane is still considered a prime suspect by the police, but with such a lack of evidence, will they ever be able to prosecute him? Only time will tell. What do you guys think of this case? Do you think Florane had something to do with this, or are you more suspicious of Max? I can't wait to see what you guys think down in the comments.